What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Sunday night recap presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Simon, joined as always by my beautiful and dancing co-hosts, Josh, John, Luke, and Jay. What's up, guys?
What up?
What's happening? They need to put that on Rock Band or Guitar Hero or something because, man, I would just jam out to that.
I'm honestly like, if that song had been on Spotify, FanDuel needs to put that out there. It would, without a doubt, would have been in my like top played songs of the year because that line just like, I don't know, it gets my energy going so much. We say it every week. What's up, Kev? Welcome in. Bert up. Glad to have you here. And he said, save me. That is quite ominous.
Oh, my. Are you okay, Kev?
Somebody check on Kev.
Save me.
God. Oh, man. That is that we're just going to assume that it is football related, Kev. And Josh will come check on you after the show's over. I'm sure everything's fine.
Maybe he needs saving from Josh.
Maybe he needs saving from Josh.
This is his hour-and-a-half window to escape. Josh is occupied.
We have had an exciting day of football, including the Lions getting their first win of the season. They did it. Congrats, Dan Campbell. I was waiting for the tears to start flowing.
That was awesome. But, it's like they won the Super Bowl. You see Jared Goff just run over to Dan Campbell and give him a big bear hug.
And you know what? Good for them for celebrating like they won the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, not every team's a Super Bowl contender. That was their Super Bowl. They won a game. They're not the first 0-17 team in the NFL. It was awesome to watch.
Well, they already had a tie. They weren't going to be 0-17.
You're right.
They weren't going to be 0-17.
They have been 0-17, but
they've been 0-16.
Yeah,
this is the first time ever that there's been 17 games in a season.
But
I was just saying this year could have been record breaking because there's more games in here. Also, Maria in here saying, Kev, Josh, you better treat Kev right.
Shut up. Bird up.
All you say.
Guys, we're going to go ahead and start talking. Oh, that's the wrong game. I'm not bringing that up. We're talking about Sunday night football to start things out. We have a matchup coming up between the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs after these 4 p.m. games wrap up. Josh, I know you had a couple player props from this game that you were a big fan of going into tonight.
Yeah, so first of all, this game is an 8.5 point spread. The Kansas City Chiefs, they are at home. They're 8.5 point favorites according to FanDuel Sportsbook right now. It's a 46.5 point total over under. For me personally, guys, it's a division rival. It's late in the season. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a gritty game. I like the Broncos with 8.5 points personally. And then I also like the over. I think there's going to be some scoring, even though it's a interdivisional game, but I like the Broncos plus 8.5, and I like over 46.5 points.
Man, that's a tough line for me at 8.5 because I feel like this is the time of year we're going to start to see the Chiefs clicking a little bit more offensively. They're going to get things going. But everything you said, it's an interdivisional game late in the season. All these narratives kind of competing with each other. I'll take the Chiefs minus 8.5. I think in this one. But that's one of the. I would probably not touch it if it were me. But if I have to pick a side, that's the side I'm on.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable enough to put any money down on it, but I'm with you, Simon. I got a feeling that this is a game that Kansas City gets it going. I think they're going to win by at least 10 points, so I would take Kansas City.
Fair enough. But in terms of player prop bets, I really like Travis Kelce, an anytime touchdown scorer. I feel pretty confident about this, and this is a people's pick. I'm doing it for the people, I feel confident about Javonte Williams. He's alone in this backfield finally. I think he's going to have a great game. I'm taking the over on his rushing yards, 70.5 rushing yards. I know it's a decent amount of rushing yards, but I think he can do it against the Chiefs defense.
If he doesn't rush for 250 yards and get 6 touchdowns tonight, fantasy football Twitter is going to explode.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Yep. What's up, C-Rob? Welcome in. Hi, glad to have you here.
That's my nephew, Colin.
What's up, Colin? Glad to have you in here. And Josh, I think I'm with you on the Javonte Williams line. He's surpassed that amount with Melvin Gordon in the backfield, I believe.
Yeah,
so he should be getting the full workload tonight. Hopefully Melvin Gordon comes back healthy and soon, but while he's out, I think Javonte Williams is going to have himself a great game.
I'm also a little bit nervous about the Clyde Edwards-Helaire 60.5 rushing yard total. If I had to lean one side, I'd go the under there. I could still see him have a good game, maybe even in the receiving game or with a touchdown.
Yeah.
Joe, would you take the over or under on that line? 60.5 for CEH.
I would probably take the over.
Oh,
The over.
we're on different sides. Gentleman's bet.
Gentleman's bet.
Let's go. Hey.
You're gentlemen.
Josh, we got one on the table that's wrapping up soon. I haven't checked on the status of it in a while, but
it's
we will
see. Stafford.
Tua had a very average game, so we will see what happens with
I think
average
Stafford
fantasy
won
game.
That one.
Stafford probably won that one, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Guys, before we get into our recap of the games today, I wanted to go around and predict the winners for tonight's game. Like I said earlier, I'm taking the Chiefs and more than 8.5, so I guess that would mean I'll take the Chiefs by 9.
Fair enough. I'll take the Chiefs by 4.
Go Chiefs by 10.
I'll take the Chiefs by 4 too. I'm with you, Josh.
Hey, let's go. When JL and I are on the same page.
Yeah,
Monday Night
what's
Football,
gonna happen.
things happen.
Well,
Let's
guys,
go.
the problem is all of us said Chiefs. I feel like we've just guaranteed a Broncos win.
That's another problem. No. The Chiefs got this.
They got this.
They got this. Guys, we are going to jump into our first game of the day. And like we talked about a little bit earlier, the Detroit Lions got their first win of a last-second, as time expired, touchdown to beat the Minnesota Vikings.
Beautiful.
It was. They should make a Disney movie about this game.
It was a beautiful game. And honestly, the Minnesota Vikings came into this game as 7.5-point favorites, and obviously they did not cover, did they, guys? The Vikings lost this game 27-29, and this is one of the best games of the week by far. It came down to the last minute. It looked like the Lions blew it at the end when the Minnesota Vikings drive down the field, scored a touchdown. They couldn't get the 2-point conversion, but then the Lions came back with barely any time left. It was such a great ending, and I'm really happy to see the Lions actually get that W finally. From a fantasy perspective, on the Viking side of the ball, it was kind of what you expected outside of Adam Thielen getting injured. He did have a sprained ankle this game, but because Adam Thielen got injured, I think someone else in this offense got some of those points, and that guy is Justin Jefferson. Oh my God, he killed it with 11 catches on 14 targets for 182 receiving yards and a touchdown. Kirk Cousins had a pretty good game himself. When it comes down to it. But I think this offense without Adam Thielen, if he's out for a significant amount of time, let's say this is a high ankle sprain, there's going to be another fantasy threat in this offense. KJ Osborne had 7 targets, 4 catches, 47 yards, and a touchdown himself. And Conklin had a really good game. So I think both KJ Osborne and Conklin are going to be beneficiaries if Adam Thielen is out for a while. What do you guys think? Simon, do you think that, let's just say Adam Thielen's out for the rest of the season. I know he's probably not. He has a sprained ankle. It's not that bad, but let's say he was. Would you be interested in picking up both KJ Osborne and Conklin?
I'm a bit more interested in KJ Osborne just because we saw flashes of it even with Thielen and Jefferson on the field. Like he's shown flashes of that talent, and I think if Thielen misses significant time, they're different kinds of players, but he's going to absorb some of those targets. KJ Osborne's the guy that I'm interested in there.
Yeah, I mean Conklin got 9 targets himself.
Yeah,
so that's tough as a tight end. Only 56 yards, 7 catches. That's pretty solid as a tight end. JL, what do you think here?
Yeah, absolutely. Tyler Conklin. I somehow combined his two names. Conklin.
Maybe it's a new nickname that we run with. I like it.
Yeah, 56% of the targets this week, which is great. He's been floated around as a guy that you can throw and stream each week on it, especially in a good matchup. And this was another with Adam Thielen being out. This is another opportunity that adds a little bit to Tyler Conklin, making him probably a decent tight end ad late here in the season.
How about you, Jay? You have any interest in Tyler Conklin going forward?
I pretty much agree with everything that these guys have said. I don't really move up Conklin that much, but he goes from the back end of that. You're hoping for a touchdown to
the
you're a little
glob,
more
I think
confident.
is what we
Right.
called it.
The glob of tight ends. He goes from the bottom of the glob to the top of the glob.
I'm right there with you guys. And Alexander Madison more or less did what we expected. 22 carries, 90 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 catches. He is a fantasy start as long as Dalvin Cook is out, right, guys?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we all agree.
Without a doubt.
He's got to be in your lineup. Now, on the Detroit Lions side of the ball, it was a little bit more surprising, I guess you could say. Jared Goff had a pretty solid game, throwing 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He did have a fumble. I guess if anything was a little disappointing, it was the running game. Jamal Williams had 17 carries, 71 yards, which is encouraging. But at the same time, you would have expected a little bit more. But if DeAndre Swift's out, I still feel pretty good about putting Jamal Williams in my lineup, right, guys? What do you think?
Yeah, you got. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Simon. Jay, you feel pretty good about putting Jamal Williams in your lineup still?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that were talking like Williams was a locked and loaded RB1, like the case is with Madison, and I don't think that's the case. I think if he is, he's gonna. He got 17 carries. You love that volume, so I think he's a. Surprise, I'm going to say this, rock solid RB2 the rest of the way, as long as DeAndre Swift isn't in the lineup.
You've evolved from avoiding it to embracing it. I wonder what the next step is.
and Simon, you were about to say something there. Do you more or less agree with what Jay said?
It's 17 carries. He got the lion's share of the carries in this offense.
Oh my God.
He did it again.
I thought I was the dad here. What's going on?
Has gotten into us today.
So, guys, TJ Hawkinson had a pretty solid bounce back game, I would say. Got a touchdown, so I feel comfortable putting him in my lineup. But that's not what I want to talk about here. It's the Lions wide receivers, especially Amon-Ra St. Brown. Any interest in him going forward? I'll tell you real fast. I'm hands off with all the Lions receivers still. JL, do you agree?
Yeah, Minnesota Vikings secondary is not the best. Not the best. It's a pretty solid matchup. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the last 3 games, he got 6 targets, 4 targets, and then this game he had 12 targets. It's a huge jump. I don't expect this going forward, this type of opportunity. But he's a promising young wide receiver. I expect more out of him next season for sure.
Great dynasty wide receiver. But again, is TJ Hawkinson, back to him real fast, is he back into that group of tight ends, with Kyle Pitts, with Dawson Knox? Is he kind of in that second tier of tight ends?
To answer your first question, I think, yes, he is in that tier with Kyle Pitts, but it's not the tier they started in. It's a tier lower. It's with the guys like Dawson Knox, like you mentioned. They are not down a tier from Mark Andrews, George Kittle, Darren Waller when he's healthy.
Mark Andrews, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, they obviously are separating themselves at this point.
Yeah, he's in that next glob, but he's near the top.
Absolutely. But all in all, it was a great game for the Lions. They pulled out the victory. They covered the spread. And it was an exciting game to watch.
I did want to say if there is a receiver that I had to start on the Lions, I know Amon-Ra had the big game here today, but I feel like the safest receiver for just a couple points on this offense is Josh Reynolds. So if you're going for upside, you could throw Amon-Ra in if you're forced to, but if you need safety, it seems like Jared Goff trusts him on a lot of these like intermediate throws. Josh Reynolds is safe for a couple targets, a couple catches, maybe 50 yards in this offense, it seems like.
I have something to say about that real fast.
Let's hear it.
Yes, I do agree. I think he is the safest wide receiver in the Lions. We're talking about Lions wide receivers, however, and not safe.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
So at the same time, what's if it's going to be back and forth like this, I'm hands off.
It's like it's the pair of scissors that you're least likely to hurt yourself running with. Like it's not safe, but like you still should.
Or maybe you would hurt yourself.
Guys, we're gonna move on to our next game: the New York Giants versus the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins continuing their win streak, beating the Giants 20-9.
The Mike Glennon-led Giants. So is it really that much of a victory? Let's be honest here. But they were going in. They were 6.5-point favorites. Took care of that, no problem, 20-9. Tua had a solid game, nothing crazy. Myles Gaskin was disappointing, though, because the Giants have given up a lot of fantasy points to opposing running backs. He only had 44 yards, 2 catches. So we're expecting just a little bit more from him. Jalen Waddle continued to do what he's done, pretty much the entire year. 9 catches, 90 yards, 11 targets. He has emerged as the wide receiver 1 on this team. There's no doubt. That was with Devontae Parker coming back. He caught all 5 of his targets for 62 yards. Is Devontae Parker worth a pickup, Josh?
Yeah, he's absolutely worth a pickup. He got 5 catches for 62 yards, just like you said today. I think he's just a talented wide receiver. If you look at every game that he's been healthy so far this season, he's had at least 7 targets outside of today's game. But, he's getting the yards. He has a high yards per catch. He's getting the valuable touches for fantasy. I think Devontae Parker should be rostered in pretty much every league.
JL?
Yeah, I completely agree. He seems like the solid second option on this team. And this team has been humming. Not a lot of people expected it, but it's been humming, just like Simon is making that sound for. So absolutely, and I completely agree with everything Josh said. Devontae Parker, he's a talented wide receiver.
Now, one thing that does take away from this is that they're on a bye next week. So if you need a wide receiver right now, maybe Devontae Parker isn't your guy, but I still think he should be picked up and rostered.
Yeah.
Simon, you have anything to add there?
No, these guys nailed it with that one.
And Mike Gesicki continued to impress. He had 11 targets. He had a really solid game as well. 7 catches, 46 yards. Is he somebody who is an every week start from here on out? And Simon, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think he has to be, unless you've got one of the aforementioned names, the Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, George Kittle. Mike Gesicki deserves to be in the conversation for that next guy, the next tight end that you're looking at starting with how he's performed so far this year. Unless we're talking about a healthy Gronk, he's up there.
Hey, Gronk is in the elite tier now.
Gronk
we might be talking about that later. I don't know.
We will.
Yeah,
we'll be talking about him a little later. But yeah, Gesicki's an
Yeah.
every week start. There's only 3 or 4 guys I think that you really should be starting ahead of him.
Yeah, I'm with you. On the Giants side of the ball, honestly, there's really not a whole lot to talk about. Glennon looked like Mike Glennon. He threw a lot of really terrible. I mean, the passes he was throwing looked like lame ducks up there. They would just sit there forever. He threw they were talking about making Kenny Golladay a focal point, trying to force the ball to him, but he's throwing to him in double coverage. It was absolutely awful. The only player on the team that did anything was Barkley. He did rush for 5 yards per carry, but he only had 11 carries. He got 6 catches and 19 yards. He did have 9 targets. JL, we'll start with you. If Daniel Jones is out for an extended period of time, which it's looking like that could be the case, is there anybody on this team outside of Saquon Barkley that you're willing to start in fantasy?
Willing to start, yes. Willing to start, absolutely. I think Kenny Golladay, I'm willing to start. Evan Ingram, I'm willing to start if I need to. Have to start? No. Want to start? No. Oops.
Yeah.
He got so embarrassed. He got so embarrassed by saying that you could start Evan Ingram that he just
exactly. He went to the upside down
the stream.
I don't blame him, honestly.
Let's see if it happens to me. I think you should start Evan.
Oh, it happened. I'm not saying. I'm not messing around.
Don't you dare. Don't say the name. Don't say the name, Josh.
I'm sorry. I'm back. Okay. But is there anyone in this? Are you saying is there anyone in this Giants offense?
So outside of Saquon Barkley?
Outside of Saquon Barkley, no, not until Sterling Shepard or Kadarius Toney get back. I think both of those guys, they're so electric. If one of them is on the field without the other, I think it's an easy start. You're starting Kadarius Toney and Sterling Shepard. Not easy start in your flex. They're good flex plays.
So weird. It was like I said Evan Ingram, and then all of a sudden the ghost of Evan Ingram out of my.
I don't know if you actually heard us talking, but that's exactly what.
It's terrifying. Dear God.
It's actually. I don't even know.
It happened to Simon and it happened to Josh too.
Yeah, he's making his rounds.
That's why I won't say the name. I'm not starting anybody outside of Barkley, honestly. Even Kadarius Toney with Mike Glennon under center, and Glennon had a concussion, so he might not even be able to start next week. So they just picked up somebody. Who was it? Jake Fromm. They just signed, so it could be Jake Fromm under center. So there's no way anybody outside of Barkley. And you know what? If Barkley has been on this borderline RB1 talk, he's no more than a running back too for the rest of the season. Honestly,
Absolutely.
The way this offense has looked, he had one really nice classic Saquon Barkley run, but you're lucky if you see one of those a game. This offense is just abysmal. You can't trust him.
You gotta love his 9 targets though.
Yeah, and that's the thing that saved his day. If he's getting, then that's what you would expect, with the quarterback play. They're just going to dump the ball off to him a lot. So he should still be able to have that running back 2 value because of the targets and because of the receptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, fully agree with you guys on that one. It's sad seeing how how far down the rankings Saquon has fallen since the beginning of the season. Hopefully we get some vintage Saquon next year, but I don't think it's coming this year. Guys, we're going to move on to our next game. The next game we're going to be talking about is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons tried to make it interesting there for a little bit. They kept it kind of close throughout a lot of the game, but the Buccaneers came out on top 30-17 in this one. First thing I want to talk about, we brought it up a second ago. I'm going to bring it up now. When Rob Gronkowski is healthy, he's in that elite tier of tight end for me. He is in that must start. There is nobody besides Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews that I'm starting over a healthy Rob Gronkowski. He's a touchdown machine. Tom Brady looks straight to him in the red zone. That's what he does. And he's a monster out on that field. I mean, just look at his stat line from today. 4 receptions, 58 yards, and 2 touchdowns. There's not much else you can ask for from a tight end. And Gronk has shown us this time and time again throughout the season. JL, I know Josh agrees with me. He said it over there. JL, do you think Gronk belongs in that elite tier of tight end whenever he's healthy, up there with Mark Andrews, George Kittle, Travis Kelce?
Absolutely. If he's healthy, then him and Tom have that relationship. He's absolutely in that top tier. I would put him probably closer to the bottom of the top tier, but for the rest of the season, I might take Gronk over Waller.
Oh, you have to at this point.
You have
to. You have to. With the injury concerns Waller has?
Yeah.
Josh, and even when he's been on the field, he hasn't really produced that. Besides out that first game, he really hasn't done a whole lot.
Yeah, I think I'd still take Kittle over Gronk, but that's probably where the line is for me.
That's what I was going to ask.
What about Mark Andrews?
Well, Jay asked what I was going to ask. What about Mark Andrews?
Sorry, Simon.
That's tough. That is tough. I think I would still take Mark Andrews.
Yeah, it's very close, but for me, Mark Andrews is higher on the food chain in the passing game in Baltimore than Gronk is. They still Antonio Brown, even though he's out a couple games, is expected to come back before the end of the season. So
I feel like Gronk is higher on the touchdown food chain, though. Like Andrews is higher on the target food chain. Gronk, when it comes to the touchdown food chain in Tampa Bay, he might be number one. Like as far as like red zone targets go.
Well, it's just that they're going to get so many more touchdowns too. Tampa Bay is going to get more passing touchdowns.
That's a very good point.
That's just the facts of the matter here, They're super close though. They're super close.
Simon, I like that you said it earlier. You said if Gronk play, Gronk good, like that's how you say it right there.
Yep, you plug him in no matter what. If he's healthy, he's in your lineup. Do not make the mistake of putting him on your bench. Even if you have a Kelce, Gronk probably belongs in your flex.
That's the reason Mark Andrews is ahead of Gronk, because he's shown that he stays on the field more than Gronk has. So if I had to choose one for the rest of the season, it's Mark Andrews.
Guys, there was another receiving option, though. We say Gronk good, but you know who else was really good in this game? Chris Godwin can catch the damn ball. That guy is an electric wide receiver. I had him criminally underrated, I believe, probably because of my love for Mike Evans, but Chris Godwin is unreal going into next season. So we're approaching the end of this season, and I'm curious how these receivers are going to stack up next year. JL, who will you be drafting first? Is it Chris Godwin or is it Mike Evans going into the next football season? Assuming Tom Brady's back. It's Godwin?
Yeah.
Is it Godwin for all of you guys?
Isn't Godwin, real fast, Godwin's on the franchise tag. Am I wrong?
I think you're right.
For some reason, I'm thinking like this is Godwin's like
did
this
he
could be
not?
Godwin's last year.
I think he did, and then
did he resign?
I think maybe I don't know.
I can't remember exactly. No. But what was the question, Simon?
Who will you be drafting first, Chris Godwin or Mike Evans? And just so you guys know, it's not including this game, but prior to this game, their total points on the season in a PPR league is 180.8 for Chris Godwin and 180.5 for Mike Evans. They're separated by 0.3 points. They've gotten there very differently. It's going to go up after this week, but
you are correct. He's a free agent after this season.
Okay.
So let's just say for the question, let's just say he signs back.
They're both on Tampa Bay. It's Chris Godwin.
And I'm taking whoever falls. I would take Chris Godwin first, but the way I play, I would go for the value because it's too hard to tell with the guys. I think Chris Godwin is the more valuable wide receiver, but draft capital matters.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think this will be the first year where I rank Chris Godwin ahead of Mike Evans. He's shown enough this year, and he's steady in that offense.
Evans still had a good game, though. I mean, 7 catches, 99 yards. You can't complain with that whatsoever. It wasn't a typical Mike Evans, let's disappear, fall off the face of the earth with 3 catches for 30 yards type of game.
Yeah.
Neither
And
one
Josh,
of these guys had a touchdown, and they both have fantastic games. It was kind of crazy.
I think you hit the nail on the head earlier, Josh. There's a lot more passing offense to go around in this offense. And we were joking they can't support 4 receivers with Antonio Brown back, but hell, they can support 3 with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Rob Gronkowski all having great fantasy days. On the Atlanta side of the ball, our MVP for the day was not who we expected. It was Russell Gage, who came away with a big game. Russell Gage in this game had 12 targets, 11 receptions for 130 yards. No touchdowns, but he ends with 16.5 FanDuel fantasy points. The 12 targets is what really stands out to me, though. And this Atlanta offense looked better than it has in the previous 4 or 5 weeks. Not great, but better. They were moving a little bit. Josh, do you have interest in Russell Gage rest of the season? So we talked about Devontae Parker earlier. Who would you rather roster, Devontae Parker or Russell Gage rest of season?
That's a great question.
That is a tricky one.
That's a really tricky one. Look at Russell Gage has been really good coming off the bye since Calvin Ridley's been out of there. Russell Gage has been healthy. Russell Gage has been pretty darn consistent outside 2 games where he completely disappeared, which is a little scary. That's the biggest thing that scares everyone off of Russell Gage. 2 games, he completely disappeared. Outside of that, he's been fantastic. He's been a great PPR wide receiver. Who would I rather have? I think it depends on if you need a wide receiver going into next week, because again, Russell Gage is going to be playing next week and Devontae Parker will not be. I think Devontae Parker's a little bit safer and probably has a little bit more upside when it comes down to it. So I'll lean Devontae Parker.
JL, what about you? You agreed that was a tough question. Would you lean Russell Gage or would you lean Devontae Parker?
I'm gonna go with Gage. Last 3 weeks, we had 8 targets for Gage, 7 targets for Gage, and 12 targets for Gage. That's pretty decent. Devontae Parker, we still only have a single game with him being back. Now, typically, what we've seen in the season when he has been playing, he's been around that line between 7 and 10 targets per game. This game, he only had 5 targets, which is a little bit lower. I think I would lean Gage. I think he's going to probably have more opportunity, but it's close. It's very close.
Jay, break the tie. Gage or Devontae Parker?
I'm going to go Gage too, and for the exact reason that JL said. Over the past 3 games, he's averaging 9 targets per game, no less than 5 catches. He does have a touchdown, so I don't trust either of these guys, but give me the guy who is consistently getting targets.
Yeah. Guys, the other thing I wanted to bring up about this game was the running back. So Mike Davis did have the better fantasy day compared to Cordarrelle Patterson, but don't worry. Don't just look at the final score. Look at the box. Look at the carries. Look at how it broke down. Cordarrelle Patterson is still the lead back here. Nothing switched. There wasn't a random changing of the guard mid-season for these guys. Mike Davis, had 4 carries, I believe it was, for 32 yards. But Patterson had 13 carries for 78 yards. 4 targets for Mike Davis, 5 targets for Patterson. The touchdown went Mike Davis's way this week, though. That's going to happen, and that was the difference maker. Patterson is still the lead back here in my mind, though. Josh, do you have any concerns for Patterson rest of season?
Patterson looked really good today, actually.
He looked good.
He's just fine. Don't you worry about his lackluster fantasy performance today. He looked good on the field, and he's still the guy that the Falcons need him. The Falcons still need him.
And who would have thought at the beginning of the season we would be saying an 11.1 fantasy point game from Cordarrelle Patterson was a lackluster game from him?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you would have told me he scored 11 in a game preseason, I would have been like, "What a week!"
Oh wow, good job, Cordarrelle.
Yeah.
Look
at you go.
It's funny the way the narrative shifts throughout
Look
the
at
season. Last thing I wanted to bring up here, we already talked about it though. Kyle Pitts yet again showing that we can't consider him in that top tier of tight end. He's just not there anymore. It's the way this Atlanta offense is moving without Calvin Ridley. It's just Kyle Pitts can't be the focal point of the receiving game, and Russell Gage isn't doing enough to take the attention off of him. In fact, Kyle Pitts is probably a reason Russell Gage is able to get targeted so much. Yeah. They're focusing on Kyle Pitts in that offense. Unless you guys have anything else to add there, we are going to move on to our next game for the day. The Los Angeles Chargers versus the Cincinnati Bengals. The Chargers beaten up on the Bengals with a final score of 41-22.
Yeah, the Bengals were 2.5-point favorites going into this game. The Chargers absolutely.
I'm sorry. The Ravens just tied it up. They're doing the Ravens thing again.
They're doing the Ravens thing?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for interrupting you. They just scored a touchdown. Oh my
Josh, we were saying right before the show, the Ravens have got to be the most
The
exciting
Steelers were
team to
winning
be
20-13. There's 20 seconds left. The Ravens just scored a touchdown. The Tide. Oh my.
Josh, are your
I'm
pants
sorry, I'm
on
sorry.
or off right now?
They're
JL,
on, but not for long.
Do you know who
JL,
scored the
I'm sorry.
touchdown, JL? Did you see it?
No, I did not. Who was it?
Sammy.
It's
Sammy.
Sammy
Sammy!
Watkins.
Sammy Watkins, baby. Let's go.
Free beer with Sammy Watkins.
Free beer.
Go
with
ahead,
Sammy
go ahead,
Watkins.
JL. I'm sorry to interrupt it.
No, that's
I'm a
okay. It
Ravens
was
fan.
worthy. It was a worthy
Yes.
interruption. But yeah, so Bengals were favored going into this game. They absolutely did not win. Chargers cover the spread and then some. The over-under was set at 49.5. The Chargers alone almost scored that many points. This game was wild. There was a ton of turnovers, ridiculous amount of turnovers. Starting the Chargers side of this ball, Justin Herbert, he was the QB3 going into this week. He's currently QB3 on the week. He had a fantastic game. I lost my notes. Oh, here we go. 26 completions on 35 attempts, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a carry for 6 yards, as well as a 2-point conversion. Justin Herbert played fantastic. And so let me ask you guys this. Justin Herbert, going into next season, where should Justin Herbert be drafted? As QB what? We'll start with you, Simon.
Oh, why'd you have to start with me? Let me pull up a list of guys. I'm still drafting Lamar ahead of him. I'm still drafting Patrick Mahomes ahead of him, but I think that's when the conversation starts. I think as early as 3 and at the latest, probably 6. You know what? Kyler Murray ahead of him as well. So I'll say Justin Herbert at 4.
Josh Allen, too. You got to consider.
I'd still go Josh Allen.
I think the conversation starts with those two guys. Know what I mean? I wouldn't fault someone for taking Herbert over Allen, but I think Lamar, Mahomes, Murray are ahead of him. You guys put Allen ahead of him for sure, but I think in that 4, 5, 6 range is where you start talking about Justin Herbert. Yeah,
I'm not saying for sure either. I think he's part of this tier now. He's part of this tier.
Part of this top tier. I like it.
Of Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray.
So much crap for
Brady.
how much I dove in on Justin Herbert after his one game last year, whenever Tyrod Taylor got injured. But it is working out. He is looking really good.
Are you okay over there? I just saw what happened with the Ravens game.
I don't worry about it.
Sorry.
Actually, what I don't actually know what happened.
Oh,
yeah,
2-point conversion attempt. We went for 2. We didn't get it.
Yes.
Damn.
Bummer.
Damn.
All right, moving on. Austin Eckler didn't have the best game. Didn't have his typical Austin Eckler game. 2 costly fumbles, but he did have 14 carries, 59 yards, and a touchdown, and 5 receptions for 45 yards. It's not the best week for Austin Eckler. It's fine. He still got you 15.4 points in any sort of PPR format. Keenan Allen, last I checked, he's wide receiver 6 on the week. He had 5 receptions on 8 targets for 34 yards and 2 touchdowns. Excellent touchdowns. I thought he had a passing touchdown too. I'm not seeing that.
It was a 2-point conversion.
It was a 2-point conversion. Okay.
To Justin Herbert.
That makes sense.
Pass to Herbert, 2-point conversion. It was sick.
Yeah, but Keenan Allen continuing to produce for you as always, continuing to be a value in fantasy. Mike Williams. We saw a little bit of a comeback week here in Mike Williams. Last I checked, he was wide receiver 17 on the week. 5 receptions on 7 targets for 110 yards. Jay, could we see a resurgence of Mike Williams late in the season here?
Resurgence, yes. I don't think he's ever going to get back to that, top 5, top 10 status that hopefully most people realize that was unsustainable. But I do think if, he continues to produce like this, you could plug him in as your wide receiver too, and feel pretty comfortable, especially as good as Justin Herbert's throwing the ball right now. So, yeah, I do. I believe it. I think, he did have an injury that he claims he wasn't nagging him, but obviously it was. He wasn't producing.
It's a knee injury, I believe.
Yeah, I believe you're right. I do. I think that this is going to be, I still think Keenan Allen is the alpha in this offense, even though 5 catches, but he got those 2 touchdowns. But I think Mike Williams could have a nice stretch run.
Josh, what do you think? Could we see a late season resurgence from Mike Williams?
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about and hyped up Justin Herbert. We love Justin Herbert, right? So he's with the right quarterback to be able to have a resurgence. I think Keenan Allen's the number 1 in this offense still. He's the safety blanket for Justin Herbert. But Mike Williams maybe is a little bit more of a big play threat. So I still feel good about having him in my fantasy lineup every week still.
Yeah. Simon, how about you? Could we see late season resurgence?
I mean, I think this offense looked better at the beginning of the season when Mike Williams was heavily involved. Now they've got Keenan Allen involved. If they are realizing that they can get the ball moving, it opens up the field a little bit more with Mike Williams more involved down the stretch as we approach the playoffs. I think they're going to do it. I expect a resurgence from Mike Williams these last couple weeks of the season. I'm not calling for number 2 overall receiver like we saw at the beginning of the year, but a top 15 guy over the last couple weeks of the season is well within the realm of outcomes, especially with how good this Chargers offense looks when they're using Mike.
And look at these matchups. He's playing the New York Giants, Kansas City Chiefs, Houston Texans. Juicy matchups.
Beautiful
matchups. Yeah.
So on the Bengals side of this ball, Burrow did dislocate his pinky, I believe, in this game. He played through it, but not the best game from Burrow. 24 completions on 40 attempts, 300 yards and a touchdown, 2 interceptions. He did have a rushing touchdown, which certainly helped, but he also had a fumble. So a little bit of back and forth for Joe Burrow. Definitely contributed to the wild number of turnovers here. And we'll have to keep an eye on the injury going forward. Joe Mixon followed up that monstrous week last week with sort of a not very impressive week this week. 19 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown, almost no receiving work and a fumble, a really bad fumble. Simon, are you worried at all for Joe Mixon going forward? Is this just a down week? We still saw 19 carries, so the volume's still there. How are you feeling about Joe Mixon?
You said it. 19 carries, the volume's still there, and he's still like, this game doesn't make me think he's not one of the best running backs in the NFL from a talent perspective. We've seen it all season. He's still got 19 carries, even on a down week for him. And even the announcers were saying it throughout the game. They kept saying things like at the beginning, like, oh, like he would have a bad run. They'd be like, this is the kind of running back that wears you down, though, over the course of a game. Like they would make excuses for the bad runs. But that's because we've come to expect these blow up games from Joe Mixon, and there's more of them coming.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton to take. What is interesting is that we saw second week in a row where T. Higgins is the lead receiver on this team. 9 completions on 14 targets, 138 yards, and a touchdown. Holy cow. Where's T. Higgins? Has your evaluation of T. Higgins, your analysis of T. Higgins changed at all rest of the season after the last 2 weeks? Is he trending upwards? Are we still just dealing with a sort of carousel type situation? What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I was saying it last week, and it proved to be the same this week. I think it's a lot closer of a 1A and 1B situation that people wanted to admit at the beginning of the year when Chase was getting all those long touchdowns, but that was unsustainable. I think that they are both high-end wide receiver 2s, and whoever's the one that winds up with the touchdowns is going to jump into wide receiver 1 status for the week. Chase could have had a touchdown, but he had an awful drop that led to one of those turnovers. So yeah, I think that they're both high-end wide receiver 2s.
I think what you saw with what you're seeing in this game, what we've seen the past couple weeks, is probably what we're going to see from them going forward. I think it's a very real scenario where T. Higgins is the target leader, the reception leader, and Jamar Chase is the one with the most fantasy points at the end of the season. Like, I think that's something that we might see going forward, like going into next year. It reminds me a bit, they're different kinds of players, but Chris Godwin and Mike Evans that we were talking about. We're going to get more big blow-up games from Jamar Chase like we do from Mike Evans, but we're going to get probably some more consistent targets for T in this Bengals offense. I'm with Jay. I want both of these guys on all of my dynasty teams, and the rest of the season, they're both good starts.
Yeah. And if Chase catches that long touchdown, it's the conversation has turned into, does Cincinnati have 2 wide receiver 1s? So
what a crazy interception that was. That was insane.
That was wild. Josh, how do you feel about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins going forward?
Yeah, they're pretty close. The T. Higgins is definitely close to the gap between the two. I love what I've seen out T. Higgins the last couple of weeks, and that touchdown catch was sick.
Double coverage, I believe.
Yeah, it was sick. Going forward, gotta rank them pretty neck and neck, high end wide receiver 2s, like Jay said.
Yeah, excellent. I'm with you. That's all I got on this game.
We're going to move on to our next game, the Indianapolis Colts versus the Houston Texans. A real close one here.
It's so exciting.
The Colts were able to pull it out by a slim margin of 31 points.
Did Texans cover the spread?
Yeah, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook, this was a 10-point spread, and unfortunately, it was not a 32-point spread like it should have been. But,
10 point per quarter spread, is that what it was?
10 point per quarter.
And somehow they couldn't get over the 45 8.5 point total, with the Colts the only ones to score points. But the Colts were close.
They tried.
So close.
They really tried to do it all by themselves.
They absolutely did, but the Colts ended up getting the victory here. And I'm going to start with the Colts side of the ball because there's really not much to talk about on the Texans side of the ball. But Carson Wentz, he had a kind of disappointing fantasy game, but it's really, it was in the back. The Texans couldn't do anything. That if the other offense isn't doing anything, then obviously the Colts offense easily drove down the field with Jonathan Taylor. Didn't have to score a lot of points with Carson Wentz. He only had 1 touchdown, 13.12 fantasy points. Jonathan Taylor had a classic game, 32 carries, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. He killed it. And then Michael Pittman had a great game as well. 6 catches, 77 yards. Guys, I know Michael Pittman has a tough schedule coming up, but we've got to consider him an every week start at the moment, right? Jay, you got to put Michael Pittman in your lineup every week still, right?
Yeah, it depends on the format where you slot him in, though. If it's 3 wide receivers, I think he's more of a wide receiver 3 than a wide receiver 2.
Really?
And I think he's locked in as a flex play. But I just the inconsistency we've seen from him. This is Jonathan Taylor's team, so Wentz hasn't had to win the games with his arm, so that's really affected his production these past couple of weeks. He did look good this week, but I can't trust him as more than a wide receiver 3 or a flex play. Now, I do think he is somebody you should start every week, but more along the lines of a flex.
I'm making you play a game then. Going forward for the rest of the season, would you rather have him or Tyler Lockett?
Yeah, I'd go Pittman.
All right, that's what I thought. Him or Brandon Ayuk coming off a poor game?
I still like Ayuk better.
Okay, fair enough. I'm gonna go Pittman there myself. Him or Chase Claypool?
Yeah, I guess Pittman. I'm going Pittman there because Big Ben's look so terrible. Yeah, and
I'm
Brian
going Pittman over all those guys personally.
Have you said Hunter Renfrow? Did you say that one?
I did not, because I know Hunter Renfrow would go ahead of him. You guys love your Hunter Renfrow around here.
I'm asking Jay, not JL. I'm asking Jay on that one.
Well, I liked Hunter Renfrow before JL did. So
obviously, we all did.
Everybody did. My grandma did.
But
guys, there was a new play. There was a player I want. Never mind. I'll get to him later in another game.
But all in all, I think you should start Michael Pittman every week. There's some discrepancy here, though, right, guys? And obviously we're putting Jonathan Taylor in there,
right? Yeah, I think it's an every week start. I've more of a back end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 versus locked in.
Where do you guys land on this subject, JL and Simon? Let's start with JL. You feeling you more on my side? It's locked and loaded wide receiver 2, or more of a wide receiver 3?
Fall somewhere in between. I think he's a back end wide receiver 2. The inconsistency, I think, has been a bit overblown. It's a little bit based off recency. If you go and look at his performance across the season, it's really just he's been in a bad run. So I think he's a wide receiver 2. He has the upside to deliver a wide receiver 1 week, which is exactly what I want out of those wide receiver 2s, especially the back end wide receiver 2, low end wide receiver 3s. But he's good, and he's really the only option on this team. So while Carson Wentz is going to be a little bit inconsistent, and Pittman therefore is also going to be inconsistent, I'm not as worried.
I'm more in line with Jay. I think just looking at the season as a whole is dangerous, because the Colts truly did make an offensive switch to make the focal point of their offense Jonathan Taylor. And I don't see that switching back, because it's been very successful for them. That is lined up with Michael Pittman's slide into these bad weeks. Now, am I projecting less than 10 fantasy points most weeks going forward like he has the past couple weeks, or around 10? No, I don't think that's going to keep on. But he's in that wide receiver 3 category for me. I think this is a run first team. This is a Jonathan Taylor first team, as it should be. And unfortunately, Michael Pittman gets the brunt of that deal.
Well, when it comes down to it, he has a bye next week, so don't start him next week. And then he's got tough matches going on after that.
Herms with the dagger.
Yeah, we saw it.
Yeah, and I also have a personal one, because the guy I'm playing in my home league had the Indianapolis Colts defense, and he defeated me this week. So Yeah.
Suck
Guys,
it, Jay.
on the Texans side of the ball, there's a lot I want to talk about over here. No, honestly, Tyrod Taylor, he got knocked out of the game. Davis Mills came in. Both of them played pretty poorly. Rex Burkhead was the leading rusher, but you didn't want him in your fantasy lineup. And the one guy we feel okay on the Texans offense putting her in a lineup was pretty disappointing himself. Brandon Cooks, 3 catches, 38 yards, 1 carry for 16 yards. I think we have to start getting a little bit worried about Brandon Cooks going forward. He's fine. You can play him as in a flex play at best for me. Guys, what do you think here? Simon, flex play? Brandon Cooks?
He's a flex play. You hope for the touchdown. He can do it. He's talented enough. He can take one to the house, but it is not guaranteed from Brandon Cooks just because he's the only show in town.
JL?
Yep, I agree with Simon.
Jay, flex play?
Flex play.
Brandon Cooks, at least he's a flex play.
if Davis Mills is under center, I don't even think he's a flex play. That's only if
he'll get so hyper targeted though. I think he'll still be worthy of a flex play. And that's it. That's all we got to talk about on the Texans side of the ball. I mean, there's nothing else here.
We're going to move on to our next game then. The Philadelphia Eagles versus the New York Jets. The Eagles coming out on top 33-18 in this one.
Before I hop into the game, I did want to say a real quick hello to my niece, Carly. She's tuned in every week and loves when we say hello to her. So just wanted to say hi, Carly. Thanks for tuning in.
Hello.
Hi, Carly. Welcome in. And before we jump into this game, guys, a couple quick reminders. Number one, if you have not done so already, go ahead and hit the like button on this video and make sure to subscribe to FanDuel on YouTube. And you can go follow them on Twitch at FanDuel over there as well. You can find them on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter as well, all at FanDuel. They have a whole team of awesome content creators helping you win money and win your leagues. They're not all us, they don't look like us, but they might have some great advice for you. So make sure you subscribe to them across all platforms. Also, guys, if you want to follow us individually, you like our takes, you like our faces, you can follow us on Twitter, Jay at GmanJ, Josh at FYF Josh, JL at FYF John Luke, and me at FYF Simon. So head on over there. You'll get an array of different kinds of content from the 4 different accounts, but it's far-reaching.
For those accounts, it will definitely be an eclectic group of content. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. It'll be great.
But jumping into this game, the Jets, Zach Wilson showed a little bit of flash. 2 touchdowns, 226 passing yards, and interception. Wasn't anything great, but it does give you a little bit of hope for Elijah Moore the rest of the season. As bad as Wilson looked last week, everybody was down on Moore, but he had a solid game, 6 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown. So, Josh, just like you played a game, it's time for us to play a game.
Yeah.
And we're going to start
Let's go. I love games.
We'll start with Josh and go. I've got 4 players. We'll go down for each one. Josh, Elijah Moore or Odell Beckham for the rest of the season?
Elijah Moore.
JL?
OBJ.
Simon?
OBJ.
I'm going OBJ as well.
You guys are losers.
Moore or Chase Claypool, Josh?
Elijah Moore.
JL?
Claypool.
Simon?
What did you just say?
They said no.
Nipple?
That's what I heard. Okay, Claypool. Man, I was gonna say the quarterback situation, mate, but then what's really big? I'll take Elijah. I'll take Elijah Moore.
I'm gonna go Elijah Moore there as well. 2 more real quick: Jerry Jeudy or Elijah Moore, Josh?
Elijah Moore.
I think I would go Elijah Moore on that one.
Rest of season, Elijah Moore. Dynasty, Jerry Jeudy. Just need to say that. And
well, of course.
That's a question.
I don't think it's of course anymore. I think there are people that'll take Elijah Moore over Jerry Jeudy. In
definitely
Dynasty.
Not in of course in Dynasty.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you, Simon. I would go Elijah Moore as well. And then the last one, coming off a disappointing game this week, Brandon Ayuk or Elijah Moore rest of season, Josh?
Elijah Moore. I said Elijah Moore for everyone.
I didn't ask you that, but
yeah. I would go Elijah Moore.
I'll go Ayuk. I've liked what Ayuk has done in this offense, and it's a much better offense than the Jets over there.
It's very close, but for pretty much the same reasons as Simon, I'm going to go Ayuk. But that's pretty much it for the Jets. This is a backfield you want to stay away from. It's pretty ugly, especially until sorry, just had a brain fart there. Yeah, Michael Carter comes back. I just read the private chat over there. The Eagles side of the ball, Gardner Minshew started for Jalen Hurts. Looked pretty good. 242 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Chipped in 11 yards on the ground. So the question everybody's going to be asking, is there a quarterback controversy?
No.
Can I ask my question, please, Simon?
I think it's rude to even ask, but go ahead.
Well, you know what? People are going to ask.
Ask it.
Did Gardner Minshew overtake Jalen Hurts as the starter in Philadelphia?
It's
we are going to start with Josh.
I knew it.
Yes. No, he did not overtake the quarterback position in Philadelphia. but I knew you thought I was going to say. But Gardner Minshew did look. He looked fantastic today. He looked great. He looked like he could run an offense. Now, when Jalen Hurts is healthy, I am fully confident he will be the starting quarterback for the Eagles. However, if he has a bad game, if he has 2 bad games, if he doesn't look right, I think the coaching staff saw what Gardner Minshew did here, and they could be like very easily just be like, "Hey, Minshew can do it." So this does make me a little nervous.
Before we go on, this is a last-minute start-sit question. Before JL answers it, I want to make sure we get to this. Flex spot Sutton or Knox. I'm up by 2, and they have Kelsey left.
Oh.
So you got to shoot for upside with this pick. So the question is, which one of these guys has more upside? Because Kelsey, that's a tough player to be going up against, only up by 2. Jay, where are you going here, Sutton or Knox?
I initially thought Sutton, but since Judy has been back, Sutton has done nothing. Absolutely nothing. So as much as I hate to say it, I'm going to go Knox. I think he could get 2 touchdowns a lot easier than Cortland Sutton could, and that's the type of game you're going to need to beat Travis Kelce.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Jay. If I had to bet which one of these players, if one of them is going to score 2 touchdowns, it would be on Dawson Knox. So I'm on the Knox side of this one. Josh, what do you think?
Oh yeah, it's got to be Knox. Got to be Knox for me.
JL, are you on the Sutton side here? Or are you agreeing with us on Knox?
I'm gonna go on the Sutton side. Upside, I totally see your guys' argument, but the Patriots are very good against tight end. They're very good against tight end. I'm worried about Knox this week. Sutton hasn't been playing well, but it is the Chiefs, and I'm hoping that this is a high-scoring game and that Sutton gets involved and Sutton gets a touchdown or 2. So I'll go Sutton.
Man, that's a tough one though, Joey. Good luck. Fingers crossed. I'm cheering for you in that one. But here's what I hope happens. I hope Kelsey puts up 40. You think you have no hope, and then Knox puts up 50 because I want a good game from Kelsey as well. And I'm not facing Knox this week, so that would work out for everyone. Sorry about that. Jay, you were asking a very, very not rude question about Jalen Hurts, if I remember correctly.
And no questions are rude questions, but JL. Jalen Hurts, did he lose his job this week to Gardner Minshew?
No, it's the Jets. I'm pretty sure an empty can of Coke could beat the Jets at this point. It's still Jalen Hurts' job.
So there's been 3 empty cans of Coke this year because, I don't know, because the Jets have 3 wins.
That's true. That is true.
The Titans when they were at full strength too. So
I can't explain that. I cannot explain that.
I just feel like even if the Eagles inexplicably made the call to give the starting job to Gardner Minshew going forward, it would be for 1 game, and then they would be like, oh, that was Gardner Minshew. We missed Jalen Hurts. They plug him back in. This was a 1 game. This was a great game from him, but I think Gardner Minshew is good at that. Coming in off a short week, and he's got the moxie, right? He's in there and he's confident and he's making the throws. And just like with Ryan Fitzpatrick, sometimes it's not going to work out. This is Jalen Hurts' job. He has shown enough this year to hold on to it.
No, I'm with you guys completely. I just wanted to ask the question. And I do think Josh said it perfectly, though. I do think if Jalen Hurts comes back and plays poorly for multiple games, I would not be surprised to see them go back to Gardner Minshew.
And the lateral in here saying Minshew set the Eagles to Wumbo. Indeed, he did. It was straight to Wumbo. And then Bray said, who else had waiver wire players that dropped 30 and 20? This was a good waiver wire week. Nice job on that one.
Sony Michelle.
That's
I guess
phenomenal.
Madison, if you're able to get him.
Yeah, let's not talk about Sony Michel because I
Hey.
swapped him out last minute. So let's
Yes.
not bring him up. Let's not. Another running back, Miles Sanders, did have a good game. I don't understand why the Eagles don't just give him the ball every time because he looked phenomenal. 24 carries. He averaged 5 yards a carry. No touchdowns because Kenneth Gainwell stole his touchdown. He vultured a touchdown from him, but he still had a good game. He rushed, let's see, where is it? He had 17.2 fantasy points in PPR league, so a really solid week for him. He did leave the game with a tweaked ankle at the end of the game. So they are on bye next week. I haven't heard any reports of anything. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. The game was pretty much out of hand when that happened anyways. But Dallas Goedert was a story on the Eagles side of the ball. 6 catches, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Do you guys expect this to continue when Jalen Hurts comes back, or do you think it's more of a product that Gardner Minshew was under center? JL? Either one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
Well, when it comes down to it, like he absolutely had the best game of the season by far, Dallas Goedert. But Gardner Minshew is more of a pocket passer, a traditional NFL quarterback compared to Jalen Hurts. So yeah, Dallas Goedert's going to be a little bit better. It seems like Minshew also wants a safety blanket. That's typically a tight end. It's a big body you can easily go to, where maybe Jalen Hurts is making some bigger throws down the field. That's why we didn't see Devonta Smith or Jalen Reagor or Quez Watkins have a good game. So yeah, I do think that Minshew is better for Dallas Goedert, but Dallas Goedert hasn't been horrible. He got 2 touchdowns this week. Six catches.
Yeah, his targets has been around the same as when Hurts had been in. So I don't see that. I just think he was able to do more with that. The 2 touchdowns absolutely inflated this fantasy score this week. He did get more yards. He had a season high in yardage in this game, 105 receiving yards. His first game breaking 100 receiving yards. But I think either one is good for Goddard. Since Ertz left, Goddard has been the target share lead guy in this team, and he's been a high target share compared to all tight ends in the league. So I'm not at all worried either with whoever his quarterback is.
Yeah, the touchdowns will fall his way from time to time. Sometimes they won't. He's getting enough targets, like JL said, that he's going to have games like this. It was inevitable. Gardner Minshew in there, yeah, maybe that helped a little bit, but this is well within the range of outcomes with Jalen Hurts under center as well. Guys, before we move on to our next game, we had a question in here. Down by 6, full PPR, facing Sutton and Aguilar. I have Fant. So they've got Fant going up against Sutton and Aguilar. Do I play CEH or Damian Harris? Thanks. Josh, you volunteered with your smile. Who are you playing?
I would be going with CEH. I could see both of these guys having disappointing games, but Damian Harris, they're playing the Bills, I believe, on Monday night, correct? So yep. I'm a little bit more concerned about that defense compared to the Broncos defense. CEH has a little more upside for me. So, and a little bit safer of a floor, probably.
Yep. Also, Joey, real quick, we did hit this one earlier. 3 out of the 4 of us said Knox. JL said Sutton. We liked the touchdown upside for Knox was the big reasoning there. So that was our answer for that one. We're going to get back to this one. I agree with you, Josh. CEH for me as well. JL, would either of you guys pick Damian Harris, or are you in agreement that it's CEH here?
Agreement.
Yeah, agreement.
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 Guys, we're going to move on to our next game. I don't know if there will be full agreement on this one, but this is the Arizona Cardinals versus the Chicago Bears. The Cardinals put it out 33-22, and with how Andy Dalton played, it should have been by a lot more than that. But I thought it was funny going through the stat line afterwards, because at first you're reading it and you're like, oh, not too bad. 26 for 41, so a little inaccurate, but 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, like pretty good. 4 interceptions for Andy Dalton. So Andy Dalton is without the interception. He's Andy Dalton. That's what I guess you can expect from him in these kinds of games. He did enough offensively for other pieces in this offense to have decent games, but he also did enough to make sure the Bears lost with the interceptions going on there. So my thinking is, if Andy Dalton starts rest of season, I'm honestly not super concerned for the receiving options here. I don't view it as a downgrade. It's at worst a lateral move from Justin Fields to these guys, because Andy Dalton can get them the ball. He just makes some weird decisions sometimes. Jay, do you view Andy Dalton as a downgrade or an upgrade fantasy-wise for these receivers?
No, I think, honestly, a little bit of an upgrade, because Justin Fields is a little obviously more mobile than Andy Dalton is, and he's not afraid to run the ball. Andy Dalton will sling the ball, as you can see by those 4 interceptions. So very slight upgrade, not anything crazy, but for the receiving options from a fantasy perspective, I would rather see Andy Dalton in their center.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that one, guys. Also on this side of the ball, we were very excited for Mooney this week. Allen Robinson was out, Andy Dalton in. Mooney has been a target machine here, but there was another player that got the same number of targets as him this week. Jakeem Grant and Darnell Mooney both had the same number of targets in this game, and Jakeem Grant did a little bit more with them. Josh, are you reading into this at all? Is Jakeem Grant a viable fantasy option with Allen Robinson out, or is Darnell Mooney still the guy you want to start?
Darnell Mooney, it's not even a question. I have really no interest in Jakeem Grant, to be completely honest with you. And I think that Darnell Mooney is he's growing into being a stud wide receiver. I'll say that much.
Also, Joey, no need to apologize. We love
Not
answering questions. I'm sorry you missed our breakdown on that there. That was the only issue there. I wish
do not apologize.
Do not apologize. And if you've got more questions, bring them in. That's what we're here for. We truly love answering questions. Sorry. Excuse me over there. And then the last thing on the Chicago Bears side of this ball, David Montgomery is a good running back, and it's going to be a great back to have on your teams through the playoffs. I was unbelievably wrong on how they were going to use Khalil Herbert once David Montgomery got back. Montgomery's the workhorse here. Khalil Herbert will get a couple carries a game, but Montgomery is one of the few workhorse backs in the NFL. I don't know how you have him outside of your top 10 guys at worst going into the playoffs. Josh, where do you view David Montgomery rest of season? A top blank running back?
Let's see. So, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, Elijah Mitchell, Cordell Patterson, Leonard Fournette, Nick Chubb, Alvin Kamara, David Montgomery, Antonio Gibson. He's right in that group. So yeah, he's a number 1 running back. He's definitely a top 12 running back. He's probably in my top 10.
I thought you were just saying random running back names for no reason.
I was just kind of going down a list a little bit. I wanted to figure out exactly where. Yeah,
I know
by me. But yeah, he probably winds up in that 10 to 12 range for me.
We're going to talk about another running back now. We're moving over to the Arizona side of the ball. The Arizona side of the ball. Jay, before this game, where did James Conner rank in PPR running backs?
Ooh.
14.
6. He was the 6th running back in PPR scoring going into this week, and that will go up. He's going to pass Zeke after this week. He's going to be a top 5 running back on the season. James Conner with 100. Oh, that is standard. Maybe it is wrong.
Got
10.
him.
I said the wrong thing. I had the wrong stat pulled up.
It's
I had
right.
both charts pulled up, and I was looking at my standard chart. He is 10. So, Jay, you are closer, but he's a top 10 running back in PPR formats, number 6 in standard, and in half PPR, James Conner's still at 10, sitting right there. But he's a top 10 back in fantasy points scored so far this season, and he scored his 13th rushing touchdown. Only Jonathan Taylor has more than him so far this season. Josh, do you view James Conner as a top 10 back going into the fantasy playoffs?
For me, he's behind the likes of David Montgomery and some of these other guys simply because, look, he's going to have this role when Chase Edmonds comes back, but Chase Edmonds is going to take away some of this passing work. He's going to be on the field. I think James Conner is the running back to have in fantasy over Chase Edmonds. Don't get me wrong. But again, Chase Edmonds is going to take away relevance, especially in PPR leagues for me. So he's probably closer to Saquon Barkley than he is David Montgomery for me.
JL, do you view or do you downgrade James Conner from like a locked and loaded RB1 down to like RB2 status with Chase Edmonds coming back, or how does that affect James Conner?
I think we have to see, right? Like, yeah, James Conner is currently in the top 12, like you said. He's running back 10 on the season. That has largely come on the back of touchdowns. He's had an obscene number of touchdowns. I think like every single game except one since week 3, he's had at least one touchdown.
That's ridiculous.
It's absurd. But I do see Edmonds getting more involved in this offense enough to certainly knock James Conner down a couple spots. So I view him as a running back 2 going forward.
Yeah.
And we don't expect Edmonds back until at least next week and probably 2 weeks. So there's not much of the season left.
Yeah. I'm probably a little bit higher on him than I think you guys are. The big reason being, I don't think it's a big deal if he gets knocked down from 20 carries a game to 16 carries a game or 15 carries a game. He makes his money with the touchdowns. It's not necessarily an efficiency thing with James Conner. Edmonds is going to be primarily the receiving back in this offense. I'm fine with James Conner.
But James Conner has been making a kind of not a living. He was good before, but the last 4 weeks they played, he's been very involved in the passing game, which I think he could lose. That's what it concerns me. Just it lowers the ceiling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. He's not that back end RB1. He's more of a high end RB2.
And then Brian wants to know, is Edmonds going to be relevant anymore? So we were talking about Conner here. Is there any chance Edmonds is going to be relevant rest of season, Jay?
Josh hit the nail on the head. He's going to get his work through the passing game. So I think he could be a back end RB2 simply in PPR leagues. In standard leagues, I don't want any part of him, but you could do a lot worse as your RB2 or flex play than Chase Edmonds once he is back.
Yeah. Also, Obi-Wan in here, man, you had a loaded bench at the beginning of the season. It sounds like you did not keep it, though. James Conner, Chuba Hubbard, Michael Carter, and Alexander Madison week 1. You did a great job drafting those guys, but, man, sometimes it can be hard to hold on to players that aren't contributing if you need wins now. So I no shame in having these guys off of your team this time of the year. That is going to be it for this game, though. The next game we are talking about, the first 4 p.m. game that we're bringing up is the Washington football team versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And Washington pulled out the win 17-15 over the Raiders today.
Another upset here. Raiders were 1.5 point favorites going into this game, according to FanDuel Sportsbook. The over-under is set at 47.5, so very, very easily the under here. It's a very interesting game. I think a lot of people have been very hyped on Derek Carr and this Raiders team. They didn't quite perform against a seemingly easy Washington football team defense. On the Raiders side of this ball, Derek Carr had a pretty underwhelming game, 28 completions on 38 attempts for 249 yards, and then 2 carries for 24 yards. No score, no touchdowns, no passing touchdowns, 12.36 points in your standard fantasy scoring for quarterbacks. Josh Jacobs had a very good game. He's been playing crazy well. He's running back 3 on the week in PPR leagues. So I have a question for you guys. Josh Jacobs, he was drafted pretty low coming into the season. Josh, I know you've been high on Josh Jacobs. I know I was high on Josh Jacobs' talent. Who would you rather have rest of the season going forward, PPR? Josh Jacobs or Elijah Mitchell?
Elijah Mitchell.
What about you, Simon?
Elijah Mitchell.
Jay?
Yeah, Elijah Mitchell, just because I don't trust the Raiders to not all of a sudden start getting Kenny Drake involved again, and he loses that passing work, which he got a lot of value from today. So,
all right, Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley?
Now that's a good question.
That's a good question. That sucks. Why'd you say that one out loud?
I'll lean Josh Jacobs at this point myself.
It's no hesitation. It's Josh Jacobs.
That hurts my feelings, but
trust me. I just died a little inside having to say that. Yeah.
As a Giants fan, I'm sorry.
So unanimous Josh Jacobs on that one. What about Josh Jacobs or who we were just talking about, James Conner?
Oh, I hate that question. It's really goes into what you believe about Chase Edmonds when he comes back. Do you think he really takes away the entire passing game from James Conner? If so, I feel like I lean Josh Jacobs. If not, I feel like I have to go James Conner with that high-powered Arizona passing game. So
I'll go James Conner.
I think I lean James Conner as well.
I go Conner because of the better offense, like you were saying, Josh.
All right, I think I would go Josh Jacobs on that one.
That one's close.
It's fair.
One. I was going to be upset if we all said James Conner because I didn't think that was deserving of a sweep.
Yeah. So on the other news in this Raiders offense, Hunter Renfrow, he's been wildly consistent PPR leagues. So I had another question for you guys, another game here. How many weeks has Hunter Renfrow had less than 10 points PPR? Josh, why don't we start with you, resident Hunter Renfrow hater?
How many weeks?
How many weeks has Renfrow had under 10 points in PPR?
In his life or just
this season? This season.
Oh, just this season.
In the history of
football. I'm going to say probably not 2. He's probably had 2.
What do you think, Josh? I mean, Simon. Jeez.
I'll say one. I'll say 1 week.
1 week. What do you think, Jay?
Simon stole my answer. I'm saying
Double one. Josh, you nailed it right.
Hey!
Week 6 against Denver.
I might
Josh
hate him, but I know all about him.
Yeah.
Josh stole my answer.
A wide receiver 21 going into this week in PPR. He scored a solid 19.2 points PPR. He had 9 completions on 10 targets for 102 yards this week against Washington. Hunter Renfrow. It's consistent, I'm telling you. So out of the other wide receivers in this Raiders offense, you have Bryan Edwards, you have Zay Jones, you got Deshaun Jackson. Are there any of these guys who are interesting to you going forward in the right matchup? What do you think, Jay?
Nope. Don't want any part of this passing offense other than Hunter Renfrow. Like you're hoping to get a touchdown. If anybody, Deshaun Jackson might be the guy, but I'm outside of the most desperate situations. I want no part of any of them.
You believe the same thing, Simon? You're down there making faces.
I'm just saying, like, Deshaun Jackson is always a Hail Mary play in fantasy. I don't care what team he's on, what he's been doing. You can plug him in and hope for a 70-yard touchdown any given week. But unless you're throwing a Deshaun Jackson Hail Mary, nope.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the Washington side of this ball. I know we were worried about Antonio Gibson and his shin injury earlier on in the season. And so I wanted to ask you guys how you're feeling about Antonio Gibson now. He had an incredible game this week. Let's see, let me pull up this number. He had 23 carries for 88 yards, 5 receptions on 6 targets, 23 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Are you at all concerned about Antonio Gibson and his shin injury now? We'll start with you, Josh.
Yeah, we have to have that conversation, don't we? Because we were very concerned about that for pretty much the entire year, right? But the last 4 weeks, ever since they came off their bye, it seems like the team is ready to give him this workload now. And I guess I'm bought in. He's getting the catches the last couple of weeks, and that's lining up with JD McKissic a little bit. But
week 10, 24 carries. Week 11, 19 carries. Week 12, 29 carries. Week 13, 23 carries. I'm with you, Josh.
You gotta feel comfortable putting him in your lineup at this point.
It's been so frustrating because I was fully bought in going into the year. They convinced me not to be bought in. And then as soon as they convinced me, they're like, just kidding. He is the guy you thought he was. 23 carries a game. Like I feel like Washington's just been toying with me because Gibson's looking like what we expected going into the season. This like truly potential top 5 kind of back, like a top 5, top 10 running back in the NFL. But yeah, I'm in. Didn't take much to convince me back.
And like you said earlier, JL, there's not much of the season left after this week. There's, in most leagues, 1 regular season and then potentially 3 playoff games. So the volume he's getting, the way he's playing, he's locked and loaded in every lineup that I have him.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. It's the second week in a row that we saw Terry McLaurin scored under 10 PPR fantasy points. How about Terry McLaurin? Are you guys at all worried about Terry McLaurin going forward?
No, I think this is more or less what he's done the entire season. He's had some disappointing games here and there, but again, his upside is, and he's obviously the most talented receiver on this team, maybe the most talented player. You got to keep him in your fantasy lineup.
Their playoff schedule going forward, fantasy playoff schedule is week 14 Dallas, week 15 Philly, week 16 Dallas, week 17 Philly. Which I thought was pretty interesting, pretty funny. So those aren't necessarily the easiest pass defenses. So something to consider there. Then the only other person I want to bring up on this team is Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas finally came back. He's been balling out. This week he had 3 receptions on 5 targets, 48 yards and a touchdown. Unfortunately, he was ruled out for the remainder of the game with a knee injury. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
It'll be really disappointing if he's out the rest of the season. He was looking to be lined up to be like a sneaky kind of league winning type play at tight end with the way he can get involved in this offense. But fingers crossed that he comes back healthy.
Yep.
Guys, we're going to move on to our next game. Now, the next game, Josh, I know the wound is fresh.
You're going to make me talk about this, huh?
About it. The Baltimore Ravens versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you know what? I love that they went for it. At the end of the game, they said 1 play, let's win it or lose it. I know it didn't work out, but I love that coaching. I love that decision.
You love it when it works.
Yeah. As a Ravens fan, I just know how this works. I mean, we were away. That's a lot of the time when you're going to see a team go for two there. And when it comes down to it, I know how Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh's relationship works. I'm sure Lamar made the decision. It's like, look, John Harbaugh's just like, Lamar, are you ready to go? Can you do this? And I guess he thought he was ready, but I heard it was a drop that it kind of came down to. I did miss the end of the game, but this game,
they should have won the game. I saw it. They should have won the game.
It's really disappointing, but it's okay. And get out of here.
He's been waiting for us to talk about
that.
This
was pretty tight.
That was like, come on,
he just pressed enter as soon as he was just waiting.
So the Ravens were 4-point favorites coming into this game, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook. It was a 44-point over/under, which obviously they did not go over. It was 39 total points. The Steelers pulled out the win. Lamar Jackson, he had a fine game. This is not what you want to see out of Lamar Jackson, though, if he's your fantasy quarterback, where he's throwing for 1 touchdown, only getting 55 rushing yards, 253 passing yards. Again, he's going to need more production if you're going to feel great about having him, because, again, you're expecting elite production every week from Lamar Jackson, and we just have not gotten that the last few weeks. Let's start there, guys. Jay, I want to come to you. Are you at all concerned about Lamar Jackson's performance this last few weeks? He's been pretty disappointing, but you got to keep putting him in your quarterback position, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no chance that you're benching Lamar Jackson outside of a 1 QB league that you somehow wound up with Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert or something like that, which is highly unlikely. But it is disappointing. I have Lamar Jackson in a lot of leagues, and he's costing me games. You're expecting, at baseline, 2 touchdowns, 60, 70 yards on the ground, and he's just not doing it right now. He's not playing awful. He's just not making those plays to elevate the team. And some of it's not his fault. Like the drop, they should have won this game. There was a couple other drops. Is it that the rushing game, having guys like Devonta Freeman, although he played well, let Devonta Freeman run free and, keep a spy on Lamar Jackson. You're starting him, but there's definitely concern that he's not going to be that superstar quarterback fantasy wise that can lead you to a championship.
Any disagreements there, JL? You still feel okay though?
I still feel fine.
Put him in your lineup.
You have to. You have to. The rushing floor gives him so much upside. You're throwing him in your lineups, but the turnovers are absolutely concerning, and there's something you gotta be aware of.
Same thing, Simon.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think the turnovers are a fixable problem as well. So I'm not too concerned about it.
It does seem like his lack of production a little bit in the passing game has leaked over to the wide receiver and tight end position a little bit. I'm not nervous about Mark Andrews. We're not even going to talk about him. We've talked about him earlier in the show. He's an elite tight end, but Marquise Hollywood-Brown, again, a little bit of a streak of disappointing games here where he did miss a game 2 weeks ago, but again, I'm still ranking Marquise Brown. Let me ask you guys a question. Is it Marquise Brown or Michael Pittman going forward? Simon, I want to ask you first.
Marquise Brown.
All right.
For me.
You too, Joe, y'all?
Yeah, it's Marquise Brown.
You too, Jay? All right.
Which
Jay Noel? Jay Noel.
So at least it seems like we agree that Marquise Brown is at least a back end wide receiver too. So again, you're playing him, but outside that, it's Mark Andrews, him, and Devonta Freeman, right? He's the running back to have on your fantasy team on the Ravens. I think he's taken over as that lead back, and you're putting Devonta Freeman as a back end running back too every week now, in my opinion, right, Jay?
Yeah, 100%. He's getting the volume. He's doing solid. He doesn't have necessarily a huge upside, but as a running back too, you could do a heck of a lot worse.
Yeah, he's right in that range. Maybe a high-end running back 3, but again, I think for most teams, especially in this landscape of running backs, you got to be starting him. Does anyone disagree? Is anyone kind of still a little bit nervous for Devonta Freeman? No?
Nope.
All right, I like that we're all high. Now on the Pittsburgh high on Devonta Freeman.
Yes, we are.
High on life.
Now on the Pittsburgh Steelers side of the ball, Ben Roethlisberger, he had a fine game. I don't think you ever really feel comfortable having him as your starting quarterback in fantasy, maybe in a super flex league. Najee Harris was good, getting 21 carries, 71 yards. He got his 5 catches that he gets. You got to plug him in there every week. Deontay Johnson, guys. Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson's a wide receiver 1, especially in PPR leagues. Tell me if you disagree. Someone argue with me.
I can't.
Come at
I can't. I cannot.
You can't
Stop
because
yelling.
he's locked and loaded. Wide
Because we
receiver
agree.
1. He had a fantastic game, getting 8 catches, 11 targets, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, I am concerned about Chase Claypool a little bit. I know, JL, you and me, we're pretty high on Chase Claypool. We
are.
like what we've seen from him, but again, he had another disappointing game this week. I think at best, he's a flex play, right, JL?
Yeah. Yeah. I at this point, probably. No, you know what?
You say a little higher?
He's a flex play. He's probably a flex play, but I would happily throw him in that wide receiver 3 slot every week. I think he's consistent enough. He's not blowing your socks off, but he's getting points.
What if you don't have socks on?
If you don't have socks on, then
Keep
he's
your
blowing
socks
whatever.
Pat Fryermuth, 3 catches, 26 yards, but he did get that 2-point conversion. As long as he gets a touchdown, you're going to be happy. And he's getting enough targets to
He's
still
in the
plug
glob.
him in. He's in the glob.
In the glob,
He's in the glob.
yep.
Right, Simon, in the glob.
I hope he can remove himself from the glob a little next year, but this year he is firmly
Very hard
in
to
the
remove
glob.
yourself from the glob.
Firmly
It's
Be
so
removed from the glob.
sticky. It's so sticky.
But this was a great game when it comes down to it. The Ravens did it to us again. You watch, you wait till the end, and it's going to go one way or the other. Like most football games, right, guys?
The most exciting team in the NFL. It doesn't
One
matter
team's
who
going to
they're
win
playing.
and one team's going to lose by the
Yes.
end.
And if the
Teams
Ravens
play.
are playing, they'll be one of those teams for sure.
Yes,
They will
absolutely,
either win or
absolutely.
lose
They will
in that
play.
game.
They will score points, maybe, and they will win or lose.
If they score more points than the other team, they will win.
That is
wow.
true.
That's mind-blowing.
Guys, we are going to move on to our next game, the San Francisco 49ers versus the Seattle Seahawks, and this was a fun game to watch.
Yeah.
There was all sorts of weird stuff going on in this game. There was the fake punt with the direct snap to Travis Homer for a 73-yard touchdown or something like that. It was
With a
70
sweet
plus
front
yards.
flip into the end zone. That was phenomenal.
Gosh, that was awesome. And then the Seahawks had a safety to tie the game at 23. This was just or at 25, this was just a bizarre game. Or 23, I was right the first time. My brain stopped working on me after that. But a fun game to watch nonetheless. We'll start on the San Francisco side of this ball. Jimmy Garoppolo did not have his best game. He threw 2 touchdowns, but he also threw 2
interceptions.
He also
Holy
threw 2
crap.
interceptions as well. JL, do you think there's any chance we see Trey Lance as the starter with Jimmy Garoppolo healthy rest of season going down the stretch here? Or do you think Jimmy G's got this locked up for the rest of the year?
Well, and the way you phrase that question, yes, there is a chance. That chance is extremely low. I don't think that we'll see that.
What about going into next year, Jay? Do you think Trey Lance is going to be the answer here? Do you think they're going to re-sign Jimmy, or do you think Trey Lance is going to be the answer going forward?
I think Trey Lance will be starting next year. I think Jimmy Garoppolo will be under center for another team next year.
Maybe the Steelers. Please don't send Aaron Rodgers there. Just for the
anything
love
but
of God,
Aaron
that's all I'm
Rodgers.
asking. Just anything but Aaron Rodgers. George
Brady.
Kittle did George Kittle things. 9 receptions, 181 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. I saw someone in there earlier saying that they played Kittle this week, Leonard Fournette the week before, and Jonathan Taylor the week before that, trying to make the playoffs. You got kittled so hard this week. I'm so sorry about that, but that is a rough stretch.
That's fantasy football.
That's
I hate
fantasy
Kittle.
football. Outside of that, not too much on the 49ers side of the ball. I kind of expected with Deebo Samuel out for Brandon Ayuk to step up and kind of continue that upward trajectory that we've been seeing, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Josh, how are you viewing Brandon Ayuk rest of season?
How am I viewing Brandon Ayuk the rest of the season? Now, we really expected a good game here with Deebo Samuel out, but Deebo Samuel, he's been playing a little running back lately, hasn't he?
He has.
I like Brandon Ayuk. He got 6 targets today, 3 catches, 55 yards. It's not horrible. Most teams are probably throwing him as a flex. I'd rather have, Marquise Brown, Michael Pittman, that kind of range of wide receiver over him. Obviously, a T. Higgins type over top. But he's probably a high-end wide receiver 3 still.
Gotcha. Dale, we're moving to the other side of the ball, and I want to play a game with you real quick. So Tyler Lockett got the touchdown today. We saw Dwayne Eskridge get a touchdown, but the guy everyone wanted to see get a touchdown, DK Metcalf, did not get in the end zone. So we're going to go with who would you rather have for the rest of the season? So going into the playoffs, we'll start with a name we've talked about a lot, DK Metcalf or Michael Pittman Jr.?
Metcalf.
DK Metcalf or Jalen Waddle?
PPR.
Waddle. Jay, I'm curious, where do you stand on this one? Is it Waddle or is it DK Metcalf?
It's got to be Waddle. Yeah. As strange as that sounds to say, yeah.
It's got to be Waddle. Josh, do you agree with them?
Yes.
Let's do one more. Someone that has been struggling recently. We just talked about him a little bit. Marquise Brown or DK Metcalf, rest of season, JL.
God.
I don't like that one.
I don't like that one either. I think I would still go DK Metcalf, but that one sucks.
I'm going to make Josh and Jay answer it because you guys both like audibly groaned when I said it. Josh, is it DK Metcalf or Marquise Brown?
Marquise Brown.
Jay, what
you
about
okay,
you?
Josh? Did you? I gotta go Marquise Brown, honestly.
Bars in the truck saying Metcalf, but sorry, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, it's a toss up, but I do think that the Ravens offense is going to turn this around, and I don't trust the Seattle offense.
Shout out to Russell Wilson, who looked pretty good today. All in all, right?
So that was the next thing I was going to bring up, is based on what we've been seeing recently from him. This was a much better game for Russell Wilson. The last thing I did want to bring up for the Seahawks before we move on to our last game, though, is a running back that made his first appearance for them, Adrian Peterson, at 11 carries for 16 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Jay, is there anything here with Adrian Peterson? Can you add him? Can you start him? If you're going to start a Seahawks running back, is it AAD?
No.
Anyone have an answer besides no for any of those?
I don't feel
Rashad Penny got 10 carries.
Rashad Penny did get 10 carries, but I think maybe the answer is we're not starting any of those. Guys, real quickly, we're going to move on to our last game, the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Los Angeles Rams. Again, another close one. I think the Jaguars might have covered the spread, but I'm not positive. Losing this game 7-37. They didn't. I'm lying.
Yeah, so we don't have much time left, so I'm just going to go into something real quick that's really been grinding my gears.
Do it. Do it.
Urban Meyer, what are you doing? What are you doing, Urban Meyer? James Robinson is the best offensive player on your team. We're not playing football with leather helmets. He fumbled the ball. Aaron Donald, arguably the best defensive player in the league, stripped the ball from him. Big whoop. It happens. You're in a game that you have no business being a part of, and you bench James Robinson for 85-year-old Carlos Hyde? What are you doing? Get Urban Meyer out of here. You won't use Laviska Shenault the proper way. Just go back to the bar dancing with girls.
Oh my God.
Jay, we have nothing
Beautiful.
else we need to say about this game. That
Had to
hit
get
the nail
that
on the head. Jay,
Beautiful.
that was awesome. That was such a great rant. I can't believe you started it with what grinds your gears and then that came out, because that was beauty right there.
You like that?
That was so
You
good.
like that?
Brian said, I bought a new sound bar just to hear this. Yeah, well worth the investment at that point. Guys, that is going to be the last game we're talking about today. We are going into Sunday Night Football. I know everyone wants to go watch that. Before we leave, though, a couple reminders. Number one, if you're watching this video, that means you are already on the FanDuel YouTube or Twitch channels. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And if you're on Twitch, hit the follow button. You can also find FanDuel on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. They're at FanDuel on every single one of them. There's an awesome team of content creators putting out stuff to help you win money and win your leagues, as Josh would say, or Josh would dance, Josh would sign. So make sure you guys are following FanDuel across all platforms.
I'm mad right now at Urban Meyer.
That is going to be it for us today, guys. Anything else before we leave?
Trading makes fantasy fun.
Trading does make fantasy fun.
Fantasy fun.
Enjoy Sunday Night Football. Adios, everyone.